This interview is being conducted at Colchester Police Station, Essex, on Tuesday the 14th of the 5th, 96. I am Detective Constable Norton from headquarters at Chelmsford, and the time by my watch is now 18:27. I'm here to interview Michael Steele. There's one other police officer in the room. If you could introduce yourself, please. Yes, DC Shakespeare, also from Essex Police Headquarters at Chelmsford. Michael, can you give us your full name and address and date of birth, please? Michael John Steele. It's the 13th of the 1242, and I live at Oaklands, Anglers Green, Colchester. Thank you very much. And you're being represented by... I'm Christopher Bowen of Jeeps and Sons. I'm a solicitor, and I'm now required to explain my role at this interview is to advise Mr. Steele throughout. I shall intervene in the interview if he requires any legal advice or assistance, or if your question is inappropriate, or you make matters known at the interview which hasn't been discussed with me beforehand. I confirm that we've had several meetings before this interview takes place. I've advised Mr. Steele, and he's instructed me as to taking all the advice that I've given him, and he wishes to remain silent at this interview. Now he understands that you've got to ask him questions. I ask you to respect his decision to remain silent at this interview. I'm now going to let you begin the interview. Thank you for my introduction. Okay. Right, it says we've had a number of consultations. Your solicitor seems fairly happy with what they decided to go through. You're entitled to free legal advice at any stage, Michael, all right? I understand, yes. So if you want to have a chat with him again, that's your right. Just indicate that to us. Now, you don't have to say anything unless you wish to do so, but it may harm your defence if you fail to mention when questioned something which you rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Now, you do fully understand and accept that principle. I do understand, yes. Now, there's a form that I need you to give you right that's going to be on the table during the interview, and I'll hand it to you at the end, and it explains to you your rights in relation to the tapes and how to get copies of them, that sort of thing. Okay, now, you've been in custody for a number of hours now. Yes. Right, you feel happy to be interviewed? You feel relaxed? I do, yeah. Fresh enough? Yes. Well fed and watered? Certainly, yeah. Okay. Now, there's been a number of reasons for that delay. Obviously, your solicitor's been updating with you why it's all gone on like this. It's a complicated and complex inquiry, and we are trying to expedite it as quickly as we can. Right, now, obviously, I was at the scene of your arrest yesterday in Ipswich, and that will be part of this interview as to what happened there and how that went on. Now, just to remind you that you were arrested for conspiracy to import controlled drugs into this country. Now, if we can just narrow that down at the moment and just concentrate our minds on the events of the last few days, then hopefully by looking at that, then we make our decision clear to you. And as I've said, you're invited to make any comments that you wish to, and anything that you disagree with, or anything that you wish to say now is your time to say it. Just a couple of things that I'd like to ask you. You've given your address as Great Bentley. How long have you lived there? The last 3 years. Last 3 years, and that's with Jackie Street? Exactly, yeah. And now, is that a legal relationship? No, she's my common law wife. Right, okay. The responsibility for that premises, is it joint names or? It is joint names, yeah. Right, okay. And the funding for that purchase was yours alone or a joint enterprise? The funding for the property? For the purchase of it? Right, the property is mortgaged. In joint names? In joint names, yeah. Right, okay. We are also aware there's another property in which I wish to ask you about in relation to Meadow Cottage, London Road, Clacton. Is that your property? It is. Are you the sole owner? Yes. And is it again same scenario? It's mortgaged to you? It's mortgaged to me, yes. Not joint names? Not joint names, no. Okay. So you're running mortgages at the same time for both properties? One is sold, yeah. One is sold, i.e. the one at Anglers Green? Exactly. Okay, right. When did you purchase Meadow Cottage? I think just before Christmas time. Christmas just gone, 95 or, yeah, or 94, 95. So it's around that time, okay. So if you say like late December 95, I assume that's fine? Approximately, yeah. Right, okay. And what's the setup? Is that fully mortgaged 100% or it's a mortgage, yeah? Right. Did you lay any money down for the deposit or no comment? Right. I'm just looking at it, owning two properties at the same time. Both to me look quite substantial properties to get mortgages and deposits, that sort of thing. Just inquiring as to how you purchase Meadow Cottage. How you, I understand, yes. Now, how are you in a position to purchase that so? No comment. No comment to the question of whether you put a deposit down. No comment. Right, okay. Now, just to cover quickly vehicles, as well as we see you're in possession of a Toyota Hilux, I think it's called. Is that your property? No comment. Is it a hire purchase? No comment. Is it solely under your control? No comment. Do other people have access to use that vehicle? No comment. Do you allow other people to use that vehicle? No comment. The second vehicle I'd like to mention to you is a Toyota RAV4. Is that your vehicle? No comment. Is it hire purchase to you? No comment. Do you own it? No comment. Do you allow other people to drive it? No comment. Okay. Again, just sort of going along with the property side of things, you was arrested yesterday in Ipswich, and in the RAV4, which you were driving Jackie Street, being the passenger. There was, I think, 2 mobile phones within the vehicle, one on the dashboard, which I can't remember the make of at the moment. Is that your property? No comment. Is that Jackie Street's property? No comment. And there was an Ericsson mobile phone in like the central console. Was that your phone? No comment. Or Jackie Street's phone? I would like to say at this stage, I don't want to sound unreasonable. I don't want to be rude. No. I intend to make a no comment either every question you ask me, whether I think it's relevant or not. Yeah. And so I don't want to continue all the way through this conversation. No comment, no comment. I just like it understood that each question that you put to me from now on, you could accept that my answer will be no comment. Right. Now, obviously, I've gone through your rights. Those rights continue throughout this interview and throughout this investigation right now. If you wish at any stage to make a comment to anything I've said, then it's still your right. Even I understand your observations. I respect your observations, but your rights continue. Do you understand that? I do. Okay. Just saying, in relation to the mobile phones, the 2 in the vehicle, I believe that Ericsson, you're not going to answer me, but I would suggest that the Ericsson's the responsibility of Jackie Street's. And the other mobile phone, which you would say is your responsibility at the moment. And the previous to this one, you had a mobile phone prior to that, probably another one. Now, as we've said, it's a conspiracy. And just to outline a bit of the conspiracy is where one person sets up a deal with another person or persons in relation to the overall offence, which is why we're considering, and that being the importation of controlled drugs. Now, I'd just like to point out to you, obviously, I'm not trying to show you any disrespect at all, but obviously the possession of controlled drugs in this country is a criminal offence, as is the importation, and to be concerned in the supply of those is also illegal, but to conspire with others means your association with others and the deals that you've hatched. So my colleague would like to run through the people that we suggest to you that you've conspired with to see whether you have any reaction to what he's likely to say. Yeah. I mean, all I want to ask you really is that the names that I'm going to throw at you and just to see what your relationship is with them, Michael. I appreciate your position entirely, but by the same token, we have a duty to investigate an offence, so I still have to ask you these questions, okay? I understand, yeah. Fine, okay. Now, we've discussed Jackie Street, who you've said is your common law wife. Okay, you accept that. Peter Corey, what is your relationship with him? Are you not going to answer me? Are you just going to make no comment, or I'm just going to make no? I'm sorry. Like I said a little while ago, I don't want to sound unreasonable. I know you've got a job to do. I understand fully, but I think it's a bit foolish of me just to sit here, keep going, no comment, no comment. Okay, throughout the process. Okay, so you're just going to stay silent then? I would like you to ask a question, and then if you would accept the fact that the answer to your question is no comment, I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. Right, okay. So, Peter Corey then, what is your relationship with him? Darren Nichols, what is your relationship with him? Colin Bridge, Jack Wimes, Russell Tate. Russell Tate is a name I haven't heard mentioned this afternoon. Please carry on, but I'm making a comment that you haven't told me. It's someone I'm just trying to ask about the association. I did mention there were some associates, and Paul Gwennett. Is there anything you'd like to say about your association with any of these people? Okay, just going on from there again, just covering property. That's what described as a rigid inflatable boat that was used during this conspiracy. We say by you, you were the owner of that boat, having bought it from Humber Boats in Hull in April last year for cash, after having been paid £1,000 initially for cash, and then finishing it off the rest with cash as well. You store it at GT Commercials Barham in a shed under the control of Jack Wimes. Is there anything you'd like to say in relationship to your ownership of that boat? Going on from what my colleague has said, one of the associates that we'd like to discuss in your relationship with is Russell Tate, that we believe on the 20th of the 4th, 96 was in Spain. Again, that's information that I haven't heard before. Please carry on. And you remained in Spain until the 9th of the 5th, 96, when you then travelled to France. Between the 10th of the 5th, 96 and the 11th of the 5th, 96, had this been an interview where you'd taken your stance, or I'd like to discuss phone calls that you'd made from your mobile phone, a number which I've already read out to you, to Peter Corey, Jack Womes and Darren Nichols, people that we allege are involved in this conspiracy with you. A number of phone calls to these people over the period of time. And also on the 11th of the 5th, 96, your vehicle was at GT Commercials in the evening. 10 minutes later, yourself and Jack removed the boat, the rib that I've mentioned before, from the shed where it was stored a number of weeks and months into the workshop to do some work on it. And on that same evening, you in fact using your mobile phone, phoned Russell Tate. And again, I would have asked you some questions in relation to that phone call and the conversation held therein. Are you willing to discuss that in any way? I think you should take that as a no. I am. On the 12th of the 5th, 96, I would have liked to discuss with you the phone call made from your phone to Paul Gwinnett. As also you phoned on the same day Darren Nichols, Paul Gwinnett again, Jack Womes and the premises of GT Commercials. And on the same day a blue transit van, the vehicle that Jack Womes owns and uses on a regular basis, was pulling your boat on a trailer out of GT Commercials along the A14 to the mobile petrol garage at Nacton, where he met up with yourself, Darren Nichols and another male, you having arrived in a Jaguar motor vehicle. I would have liked to ask you questions in relationship to the reason for you paying for the petrol, the fuel that you put into the rib at that premises. I believe it to be £120. It was paid for in two separate amounts of £60 by you being in the kiosk area with Darren Nichols. The other male that arrived at the petrol garage with you having gone over to the boat, and all four of you would say then travelled in those vehicles to Leamington where the rib was put in the water, you getting on the boat, Jack Womes then leaving in the transit van pulling the trailer, Darren Nichols leaving in the Jaguar, and then you going out to sea on the boat with the other male. Really, we go on there to say that you were seen in the early hours, beg your pardon, your boat was then seen in the early hours to approach the beach at Jaywick, Clacton, where it was met when an exchange occurred. You then went back to sea and the vehicle that was used with the occupants left the beach. As far as we're concerned, you then took the boat back to the Ipswich docks where the boat was lifted out of the water and taken away from the dockside by yourself and others. We then skip on a bit till yesterday and the afternoon when you was at Meadow Cottage, which you accepted at the beginning of this interview is your property, which you purchased, I believe you said Christmas time 95. You were then seen outside your premises with another male and Darren Nichols. There was a new style blue Ford Transit van there, and the Jaguar that I've already mentioned had been taken there by Nichols. Nichols at this time was in possession of a toolbox. There was a meeting held there, and we know that Darren Nichols left in the Jaguar, and as far as we're concerned, is it right, sorry to interrupt you, is it right there was a third person, there was an unnamed person as well? Yes, sorry, did I not just say that? I think you did, yeah. Sorry, I missed that, I apologise. As far as we're concerned, later on that day, you've seen in your convoy driving your RAV, Jackie Street being your passenger, being followed by Peter Corey, who is also in custody here, driving the blue transit van, which we know is the property of Jack Womes. He drove via the A12 to Ipswich, where he was arrested and cautioned. And I can't remind you of your reply to the caution at this stage, because I've inadvertently left it on another piece of paper, and I cannot recall that it was be documented. I guess you're making no comment and don't wish to discuss what you may have said at the time. I can do that at a later interview. The basis of this allegation is that you conspired with others to import drugs. The toolbox, which I've mentioned seen in possession of Darren Nichols at your property whilst in your company, we would say was a toolbox recovered from Darren Nichols' possession later on that day prior to your arrest. Could you say that again? The toolbox in question, which was in possession of Darren Nichols at your property in Meadow Cottage in your company with the other male, we will say that is the same toolbox that was later recovered that day in the possession of Darren Nichols, and in that toolbox was found 10 kilos of cannabis resin. We say that cannabis resin is part of a consignment that was imported in this country by you using your boat during the time period that we have said arranged by you and your associates to be brought in the early hours of yesterday morning, and then to be dispatched around the countryside to various sources. Do you understand the seriousness of that accusation? I certainly do, yes. And you understand what the basis of that accusation is? I'm not asking you to accept it or to agree with it, but you understand the basis of the accusation? I understand it. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt. I'm sure that there can't be any doubt in your mind, then, Michael, that we're saying that you are the person that left the UK in the early hours of that morning in your boat and drove to the continent and actually collected a commodity and returned it to this country where it was brought ashore. There can be no doubt, I'm sure, in your mind as to what we're saying. And as long as you understand that, obviously, we have to give you the opportunity, knowing what the basis of this allegation is, to make any comment that you wish, anything you wish to say about what we've discussed with you. And I accept what's been said before, but I have to ask you whether is there any information you'd like to give us at this stage about your involvement or anyone else's involvement in an importation of controlled drugs into this country. I have to give you that opportunity. You're staying silent to that there isn't anything else that I can think of. Just to really point it out to you, there are a number of other people in custody in relation to this conspiracy. It is a lengthy inquiry. It is a lengthy process of interviews and dissemination of evidence and information. I've said to you that we're doing that diligently as we can. There are other interviews that have got to take place and are taking place at this time, so things may take a little longer, but it will pan out, hopefully, so you know where your position lies. Part of the reason for this new caution that my colleague gave you at the start of this interview is because there's been a change in the law, and under certain circumstances, and I do have to stress it, under certain circumstances, I'm sure that your solicitor will advise you accordingly that at some stage this case does go to court, that again, under certain circumstances, there are inferences that can be drawn by a jury at the end of the day for the fact that you're not making any replies to the questions that we put to you, okay? And I think I'll just make that point to you. I do understand it. Along those lines, is there any explanation that you can give as to why you took the rigid inflatable out into the North Sea into the early hours of that morning? Any legitimate explanation that you can give as to what might explain why that happened? And again, I take this silence as no comment. If we were to sit here for the next 3 hours, which I can assure you we're not going to, but I'd like to just ask you to acknowledge that at some stage, if we were to sit here for the next 3 hours and ask you questions about this matter, would it always be your intention to make no comment? Yes, that's with respect. I understand fully you've got to ask me, but I don't want to sit here like a dummy. I do understand what you're trying to reach, that I've thought about it. I've taken advice, and I do feel like by adopting my statutory right to remain silent, it's perfectly adequate for me. Fine, okay. Well, under those circumstances, I have no further questions at this stage that I need to put to you. This interview has been tape recorded. I am Detective Constable Shakespeare from the Essex Police Central Detective Unit at the police headquarters. The time by my watch is now 22:30 hours. It is still the 14th of the 5th, 96, and I'm in an interview room at Colchester Police Station. Also present in the interview room is DC Norton, Detective Constable, also from the Central Detective Unit, and also Chris Bowen. I'm Chris Bowen, a solicitor from Jeeps & Sons here in Colchester, and I'm going to explain my role at the interview is to protect my client's basic and legal rights. I'm here to advise him at all times. Thank you. We're investigating the offence of a conspiracy to import controlled drugs, as you're aware, and a record of this interview is obviously being made, and you may be giving it to you in evidence if you are brought to trial. Could you first of all tell us your full name and address, please? My name is Michael John Steele. My address is Oaklands, Angers Green, Colchester. Thank you very much. I gave that as my address. The property is going for under sale. There is another property which I own, which I'm living in at the moment. It's being renovated, which is Meadow Cottage, London Road, Clacton-on-Sea. Okay. I'll remind you that, of course, you're still under caution, whereby, I understand. You do not have to say anything that may harm your defence if you do mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. Anything you may say may be given in evidence. I understand, yeah. Good, okay. And you understand that as per our previous interview, the reasons what we're saying that you're under arrest? Yes, I do. You obviously now have an opportunity, Mickey, to consider what we said to you in the last interview. Right, yes. Is there anything at this stage in this interview that you'd like to say to me about the questions that were put to you previously? No. Not at all, no. I asked you obviously to account for your whereabouts and your movements over the weekend. It is still your intention, I would think, if I was to ask you the same questions, to make no comment or maintain your right to silence. Yes, I'd like to adopt my statutory right and adopt the no comment. Okay. I have to appraise you of any developments in this case, and I have to say that since our last interview, it's come to my notice that during a search of Meadow Cottage, which has been undertaken by my colleagues, that a firearm has been recovered that I understand is an 8-shot pump-action automatic shotgun. Whichever way you want to describe it, it was recovered from the loft of your house, hidden under the floorboards, I understand. Is there anything you'd like to tell me in relation to that firearm that's been recovered? I have no comment. Okay. Is it your firearm, your gun? No comment. 8-shot pump-action shotgun is a prohibited weapon under the Firearms Act, and it's such an offence to possess it. Do you hold any sort of firearms certificate at all? No comment. I also understand that, having checked your previous record, that you've served a term of imprisonment, which would mean that you are what we call a prohibited person, i.e. you're not allowed to possess a firearm, having served a term of imprisonment. Are you aware of that? No comment. Okay. I also understand that, again from my colleagues, that a search has been made at your address at Anglers Green. During the course of that search, I understand that my colleagues have recovered some other items, first of all being a dry suit, survival suit, obviously used in yachting or whatever. Any reason why you should possess that? Are you a yachting man, or any reason why you should have that in your house? No comment. Is that dry suit, survival suit your property? No comment. I also understand that it was a handheld satellite navigation handset system. I am not a technical man, I don't understand exactly what it is, but it's a handheld sat nav. Anything you'd like to tell me about that? I think you're wrong. I'll answer something. I think you're mistaken. As you say, you're not, I haven't, and again, I haven't seen it. It's what I've been told. I think what you found probably wasn't in the house. It was sitting on the step outside. Right. And I think what you found in the bag are 2 VHF radios, handheld radios. Right. Communication radios, marine bank radios, and there is 1 night lens. Right. I think that's what you found. Well, I mean, it wasn't switched on, but it appeared to be like waterproof. One of them is a waterproof radio. Right, okay. So it's not a navigation system. No. Right, okay. Thanks for clearing that up. Why have you got that radio? No comment. I also understand that there were some maps, navigational maps, that were recovered during the search as well. Anything you'd like to tell me about those? No comment. Have we got those? Yes. Can we have a look at those? There's 1, 2, 3 maps. We're just showing you that the 3 maps in question to Steele, in Thames Estuary northern part, with drawing on in blue, in particular there, Mr. Steele. I just draw your attention at this stage is the location of Jaywick, in particular marked, and no other way along the coastline can I see a similarly marked place with a navigational reading. Just showing it to your solicitor as well. Jaywick. Can you see that's where I'm pointing? I can see, yes. Right, okay. I won't attempt to explain what that means. Another map, Thames Estuary southern part again, with blue ink on, particularly at the top there. I assume that's where the boys of Swing Spitway and Whittaker. I'll show that to your solicitor as well. And another map, in particular on the left hand side, at the top is a white piece of paper stuck on top of the River Cloyne, Brightling Sea on the top. 7 boys mentioned, all with the navigational coordinates, and in the centre is Gunfleet Sand and of the Clacton-on-Sea. And the rear is what I describe as a navigational route with readings and degrees marked on the bottom left hand corner. North East Gunfleet is shown with a navigational reading. Bottom right hand corner is Pie End. I'll show you those to your solicitor. Thank you. Okay, sir. All believed to be found in the same holdall as you've described. Are they your maps? No comment. Seeing that one of them is obviously got some calculations and handwriting on, is that your handwriting? Show me what? Where do you mean? Any of those markings really is what we're... They're all my markings on those maps. On all these maps, on all these 3, I think there's one on the back, isn't there? The drawings. That's the plain piece of paper that I'm indicating to you there. Obviously leads me on to... I don't know anything about your background as such. You know, if you're a yachting man, or if you're interested in yachting or navigation, or if you've done a night course or anything like that, that can help me understanding why you've got that, because obviously I'm saying it's pertinent to what I'm looking at, Mickey. If it's then again, it's your opportunity to... I understand. Tell me your point you're making, and I still adopt my sanctuary right and have no comment. I do fully understand the point that you're trying to make. And I, for the part, because you know we're professional people, understand your part as well. But nevertheless, I've still got to ask you the questions, which I understand. I mean, to us, just taking a quick glimpse, it would be a route back from the continent to... See, this is to back... I have to be perfectly honest with you. It's something that I'm just not going to go into. It's no comment. And you're no comment. Perhaps for the benefit of the tape, and if you don't want to do it yourself, perhaps you'll allow me to describe the clothing that you're wearing. Certainly. Can you confirm for the benefit of the tape that you're wearing a pair of black shoes? Yes. A pair of blue trousers? That's correct. And a mid-grey long-sleeved college shirt? That's correct, yes. That was obviously the clothing that he was arrested in yesterday. Yes, correct, yes. You haven't had a change of clothing? No, I haven't changed the clothing. Okay, fine. Again, if we were to sit here for the next couple of hours and chat about things, would your stance change in any way, shape or form? No. To the fact that you're not going to make any comment? No comment. To the questions that I ask you, and that's an advice of how you feel, and of course your solicitor? Exactly, yes. Okay. One point not to note is just looking at the records here that I didn't mention your solicitor, and that I'd like to do now, is that there was a quantity of money found as well at Anglers Green, which I'd forgotten about. How much money? Can you tell me, please? 5,000, which was... Sorry, I'm not aware of this. Okay, yeah, I forgot about that. I hadn't mentioned it because I'd forgotten all about it again. I don't expect you to answer to it, but I just want you to say to you that I understand there was a quantity of money that was found at that address. If you want to pause this interview to speak to me about that, Mr. Steele, you're welcome to do so. Sorry? If you want to discuss that matter, which has only just come out to our attention in private with me, you can do so. It's no comment. Okay, thank you very much. So we're talking here about a conspiracy to import controlled drugs. It may perhaps come to you as no surprise that our operation has covered a period of time. And we're not just talking about a period of time over the weekend. I understand. So I don't intend to go into anything else at all now because we haven't appraised your solicitor exactly what the situation is. But I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm saying to you. We believe that you've been involved, Mickey, over a period of time in the importation of controlled drugs, going back to a period of at least last year. We also believe that one of these importers at least involved other people by the name of Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe. These people that I've mentioned, they were murdered in December 95, and I have to tell you that you are now under arrest at this time on the suspicion of the following. The first is being involved in the murder of Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe in December 95, and also in further conspiracies to import controlled drugs into the country. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do mention one question in court, something which you rely on later on in court, and anything you do say may be given in evidence. I understand. I wish to conclude the interview at that point. Can I just say you haven't arrested him for the gun-related evidence? Good. My colleague has just reminded me that I haven't in fact also arrested you for the possession of the shotgun. Yes, that was found at the house. So I must also tell... Do I understand that I'm under arrest for participating in the murder of Patrick Tate? On suspicion of being involved in the murder. They're free now, you're saying, isn't it? Yes. So just so that you're clear, I've arrested you now on suspicion of further importations, conspiracy involving further importation of controlled drugs. I understand. On suspicion of being involved in the murder of the three men that I've mentioned, and also on suspicion of being in possession of the shotgun that was recovered. I'll make one comment in answer to your arrest or charging against that murder. I'm a totally innocent party. Right. Well, I'm not going to ask you any questions about that. I just feel at this stage, something of that calibre, I must definitely express that I'm totally innocent party. Nothing whatsoever. I do not know anything whatsoever. Is there any particular reason why you've waited this long to discuss that? Because obviously that's the most serious charge. You've been discussing it all day and all night. I'm not prepared to discuss it any further on tape. It's not fair for me to go into it. It's right that you haven't told me about this beforehand, isn't it? No. Okay. Okay, right, so now it's my intention now to conclude the interview. It's still Tuesday the 14th of the 5th, 96, and by my time, the watch is now 22:45. I intend to conclude this interview.